Hi, everyone, and welcome again to one of our Hobby Memorial Library, Central Texas College virtual events. We are very excited today to have Mr. Stephen Draper. He is the director of the National Mounted Warrior Museum that is going to be um, erected. It is in the process of being erected, and he is going to give us some details about it. He's going to tell us some cool stuff about some of the exhibits that they're going to have and give us a timeline. And he's been giving us lots of cool historical facts. And so I'm going to go ahead and let you get started. Thank you so much for joining us today, Mr. Draper.
Thank you, and good morning, everybody, and welcome to our podcast here. I'm delighted to be able to provide some information about the new museum and to answer the questions that you might have. The National Mounted Warrior Museum is a museum that was created through the vision of Fort Hood leaders, including General Shoemaker, as well as others, to tell the story of mounted warfare through the eyes of Fort Hood, the First Cavalry Division, and the Third Cavalry Regiment, and tell that story. Um, what the catalyst of the thing is using vehicles, horses, aircraft to be able to conduct operations. And so our museum will tell that story. We hope in a very interested and entertaining way as we get started. So I guess the big question is, when does it start? And so we're right now in the end of phase one of the construction. That phase was started back about the 23rd of November of last year, and phase one will be completed, knock on wood, will be completed about the 14th of November this year. Now, what that means is it's the building that is being completed. And so if you want to go ahead and click on a couple of pictures, we can kind of talk a little bit about that. So the building will be completed at that time, phase one of that building. And so what you see in the first picture that you see there is the complete process. When everything is done, all the phases are done with that. And so the phases that we're talking about, what you're seeing currently is the rotunda, the main exhibit gallery, and the changing exhibit gallery, and of course the physical plant. That's all on the right-hand side, if you're looking at your camera, on the right-hand side of the building, plus the parking lot and landscaping. On the left-hand side, there is another piece of the pie there, a wedge of the pie. That is another exhibit gallery. And then the large wing that goes out from that is the education department or education side of the new museum, and that is phase two. So phase one is what is on the right hand side. Phase two is the left hand side, and then phase three will be that extra wedge off the back of the museum. So that's what's going on right now. But phase one is done. We go ahead and slip over to the next slide real quickly. So again, if you look in there, everything that's in dark blue is what will be completed now. So that's all going in about the 14th, be completed on the 14th of November. Now, that doesn't mean the museum opens up yet. We still have a long way to go yet on the new museum. So that construction is done, and we will slowly and surely be moving into that. So what we're doing now as the staff is that we are putting together the exhibit design, and that is funded through the United States Army, where the building itself is funded by the National Mounted Warfare Museum Foundation, and they are funding that. So we're kind of two different separate funding sources here. So we are working on the exhibits for that right now, for that particular phase. Let's go ahead and move to the next slide and see what we got here. There's a nice picture. Again, here's what you're seeing today. Well, not today. That's a couple of days old. But that's what you see in the physical plant right there, and in the rotunda. And so once we start working on the exhibits, We're doing, as I said, we're doing a design. We have a design firm that's come in from back east, and they're coming in to do the design work, which will, all the exhibits, all the label text, all the photographs, the artifacts, all that is be worked up into a large plan. And then once that plan is done, and we're talking roughly March or April of next year, then we'll go into the phase, which is construction and installation, and we will contract that particular phase out. And then, so that will last us 6 to 10 months from there. So we're looking at a grand opening sometime in mid to late summer of 2023. Now you say, well, that's a long time away, but really it isn't. All the work that we have to accomplish is we need that time. But we are planning to do a soft opening sometime in June of next year. So that's not too far away. That will have some temporary exhibits in the galleries. It will have some drawings and designs of what the new new exhibits are gonna look like, as well as be able to do some programming and special events in those galleries until they're filled up. So we do that. So let's slide to the next slide here. There we go. That's the one I really wanted to show. So this is what the new museum exhibits are going to look like, and it's going to be neat. And again, what you're seeing is, not the individual exhibit cases, but we have 8 macro artifacts, including helicopters and tanks that are going to be going inside the building, plus another 2 helicopters that are going in. So, for example, if we take a quick look, we walk through the front door into the rotunda, you'll see hovering in the rotunda, there'll be an OH-6 Cayuse helicopter, or Lurch for those who, Loach for those who, right below that, if you look real close below that, there's a World War I F-17 World War I tank that'll be sitting that below that next to, and you can't see that very well, but there's also a mounted cavalryman that'll be there, and also a modern soldier with a Raven in his hand. A Raven is a hand launchable drone, and that's going to be the centerpiece for the new exhibits on the new museum. And then there's posts around there's posts that hold on the side of the rotunda that will have panels and banners that will talk about the history of or talk about the characteristics of mounted warfare, mobility, flexibility, firepower, and those things. And then you'll walk through the front door into the exhibit gallery, and you'll just snake your way around the gallery as you go through the exhibit. We'll start off with as early as the American Revolutionary War, War of 1812, the Civil War, and then get into World War II, which is really our bigger story, more of the Fort Hood story, the development of tank destroyers here at Fort Hood, the Army Women's Corps, and things of that sort. And then coming around the corner, then you'll get into the development of the Korean War, the different wars against communism, and then get into Vietnam with, of course, the Huey helicopter as part of that. And then we'll talk a little bit more as we go around. We'll talk and display things dealing with the Cold War, and then get into the war on terrorism, and the first of the war with the Gulf War, and with the Bradley fighting vehicle on display as well. Moving then, excuse us, folks, we got light problems. There we go. I'm sorry. This is what happens when you're at live. And so then from that, we'll have a striker and an MRAP that will talk about those stories, and then we'll be involved coming into the end of that exhibit that will bring us up to the present and what's going on here at Fort Hood, and what's going on with the Army to the present. So lots of exhibits there to see. And again, the big macro exhibits, or the big vehicles are just part of that. There'll be exhibits in there as you go through that. These exhibits will have things. more detailed history on Fort Hood and the 3rd Cav and 1st Cav Regiment Division. So that's all be kind of neat. So one of the things that we had talked about and some of it asked about, we're going to be talking about some of the different personalities that have made up the history of Fort Hood, including Elvis Presley and Joe Louis and Vita Culp Hobby. They'll be all incorporated into that. Jackie Robinson will be all incorporated into that story of the creation of Fort Hood. We're going to go off and talk about some other interesting things. Talk about women in the military and their development and how they were played an active role in the creation of Fort Hood. So those particular areas. In the World War II section, for example, we're going to talk a bit about how the tank destroyer program was created here at Fort Hood, what its usefulness during the Second World War, and in particularly how it operated, as well as then telling the 3 Corps history and this 1st CAD Division history and 3rd CAD history of their operations in World War II. Also, I like this one. We're going to have a display about code talkers. And everybody knows about the Navajo code talkers, but the Army has been using code talkers since the First World War. And we haven't done a lot of publicity about it. And so we're gonna talk a little bit about that. The 1st CAD Division used Lakota and Dakota nations code talkers to provide information. She's got the same problem I do. The code talkers were to provide information to different parts of units, and the Japanese and the Germans could not understand some of our First Americans' languages, and so we're going to kind of tell a little story of that, in particularly with the 1st Cavs code talkers. And we're actually going to have several individuals who are going to be speaking, and you'll be able to touch a board there and learn something about how the Lakota and Dakota languages were used during the Second World War. So there are a lot of different things that are going to be involved in those displays as we go on. There'll be music. There will be, we call electronic coffee tables, where you'll be able to learn a little other history that we can't display. In bigger exhibits, we'll have those on electronic displays on a coffee table type device as well. So there's a lot of electronics and a lot of things that'll be utilized in the exhibits. So those are some of the things that we're involved with that. Let's go ahead and move on to the next slide here. So for example, this is one of the tanks that we're going to have on display here. This is an M4A3, and that we just had that moved from Fort Bliss to Fort Hood. That'll be one of the tank we're going to use for the Second World War, in addition to the M10 tank destroyer that'll be told those stories. So good, let's next slide. And then I wanted to just kind of use this slide and talk about it, but this is what the museum looks like at night. And I know that some people who've seen the museum so far, it's become a landmark now for the community, and more people will be involved in that as well. So we'll be able to see it from. We've been told that you can see it all the way from Nolanville, and also from Copper's Cove. So we hope that that's a beacon to bring people to the new museum. I talk a little bit real quickly about, we talked about the exhibits, but we're also going to be involved in educational programming. And we are creating an education programming section within the museum. We hope to have new classrooms that'll be built here in the near future, that we can do special programming for the public as well as for our soldiers. We're dedicating that history to tell, or that portion of that to tell that story, and we can do special events evening events, afternoon events, weekend events, and lunch hour things that we can create. So, in addition to just the exhibits, we'll have informative programming going on. And then, of course, one of that aspects too is we have a changing exhibit gallery. And so we'll be able to rotate different exhibits. If we can't tell the whole Fort Hood story in the main gallery, but we can tell smaller parts of that in the changing exhibit gallery. So for the first changing exhibit or traveling exhibit we got coming in, that we're talking in the June time frame for next year, is we're going to talk about the military cartoonist Malden, Bob Malden, who was the cartoonist, and he created the two characters, Willie and Joe, and their exploits during the Second World War through Stars and Stripes and other newspaper. Malden becomes, after the Second War, becomes a nationally known political artist, receives the Pulitzer Prize, and so we'll have some of his work on display in a temporary exhibit. We're also going to have a lecture from an expert on Malden's life that'll come in and give a lecture on that. So we've got lots of things planned, in waiting for the new exhibits to be built. We'll have new things coming in to kind of tell those particular stories. So lots of stuff going on. We are currently, the two current museums are now closed to the public. We are in the process of moving the collections to go into a central storage area that will be on post. We're taking the old 3rd Cavalry Museum building, and that's going to become the new storage facility for the National Warrior Museum. And so we're consolidating those collections under one house, so we can better take care of that particular collection, and also kind of give us, see about things that we have that are coming our way in the future for new donations and things of that sort. One of the things we received here just recently is the yearbooks for Fort Hood High School that we hope to display in a temporary exhibit in the near future about the history of Fort Hood. We just received a new Stetson, the cavalry hat. We have General Stockton's original cav hat, who is credited with the first cav hat in the history of the cav hat. We have the second hat that was created, so we're real proud of that and tell that story as well. So lots of things going on in the museum. As I said, we're busy with new artifacts and new donations. We're doing all this work in preparation for the put the exhibits in and move the new artifacts. So with that, do anybody have any questions?
Let's see. Firstly, does anybody have any questions on that end?
No, there are no questions right now.
Not yet. Okay, well, I have some questions. We spoke about this earlier. The museum will not be behind the gate, correct? So that the general public can go and visit the museum without having to go get a pass or anything?
That
true?
is correct. We are right next to the visitor center. You can't miss the building. It's huge. So we're right next to that, and we're in between the visitor center and the horse detachment. So we are going to partner with the horse detachment to do some activities together. They have, for example, they have Thursday afternoons. They do their rehearsals and they do their practice, and so we're going to be able to help promote that. And so the public can come over. They visit the museum, visit the new museum.
Just keep
And,
waiting.
Hang on here. There you go. Sorry about that,
There we
folks.
go.
Visit the new museum and then go right over to because we're literally right next door. We're neighbors. They go right next door and sit down and watch a rehearsal and be able to tour the park. You can literally look out the window of the museum, the main rotunda, and see the horse detachment right next door to us.
Cool. I have another question. You said that throughout the exhibit, there's going to be electronic things that give you some history. Will you also have like museum docents or guides that can answer questions? Because you know you're going to get a lot of military questions as people come through.
Yes, we are, and we are going to create a docent program that we have the space to do that. We're going to create a docent program where we'll have people available to give tours. We'll also try to do what we call in-gallery presentations, where we'll have individuals in some cases in reproduction clothing that'll be in the gallery in particular areas that will talk about some of the other stories of uh, of the Fort Hood stories, and also have some things that you can actually physically physically touch and get a chance to see what an M1 helmet looks like, or over one helmet, or a gas mask. That'll be available to do that as well.
That's cool. And you said that you'll be focusing on like Oveta hobby. I cannot speak. Jackie Robinson, Elvis Presley. Are you going to be like through their eyes or telling their story, their individual stories? Because it sounds like there's so many different exhibits that, but you're going to focus on individual stories as well. Is that true?
Yes, it is. We're going to, as we go through the galleries, there will be small exhibits that will highlight some of the more individuals that have made contributions, in particular to Fort Hood. We'll be Jackie Robinson, Joe Lewis, Kavita Culp, General Bruce, individual like that'll be telling that particular story. We'll be accessing those people through that, either electronically or actually physical exhibits. We have we talked about Elvis Presley. We've got a mannequin. We're creating a mannequin of Elvis in uniform, what he looked like here at Fort Hood. And he's going to be standing in a 1950s Fort Hood mail phone booth, so we're going to kind of tell his story as well as other people that we're going to talk about in his as we go through those particular time periods.
Well, cool. Well, you said that the exhibit is going to be not only, the history of the mounted warrior in the military, but also a history of Fort Hood. So, you want to give us a sneak peek of the history of Fort Hood? Like, how long
Sure.
has it been around?
Well, again, Fort Hood's been here since 1941. We're actually going to talk with the help of the folks from the post archaeology department. We are going to talk a little bit about the story of the creation of Fort Hood. Um, some of that's going to be an electronic display called Hometown Fort Hood. Going to remember how Fort Hood was created, and in particular what the housing looked like. We've got pictures of some of the horrible housing that was created for family members, in the creation of Fort Hood. Also, we're going to talk about something with dealing with ethnic with diversity, and the the movement of African American soldiers into Fort Hood in the 1940s. This was not a friendly place for African Americans, unfortunately, and we're going to talk about their role here at Fort Hood, and the response of the community.
Okay. And will you have like sections in the museum that show films, videos, that people can go sit and watch a particular battle or how something was used?
Well, for example, in the Desert Storm display, there'll be electronic coffee table that'll talk about um, the contributions of Fort Hood units during Desert Storm, and in particular, we're going to kind of highlight one of those engagements, which is everybody knows about, the Battle of 23 Easton, which was one of the major tank engagements of Desert Storm that really kind of created this whole, the destruction of the Iraqi army by members of the Second Armored Division and other units that made up that task force. So that story is going to be told. We're also going to talk about other particular areas of Fort Hood history, and also with first cav and third cav history as we tell those stories. In the case of the first cav, we're going to talk a little bit about the battle for Manila and the activities in the Korean War and things of that sort. Third cav, for example, one of the things that we mentioned is the 100th anniversary of the Tomb of the Unknown, and we have the bugler. We have the bugle that was used to play taps out of the tomb when it was first christened, and so that bugle is on display. Will be on display at the museum. It's currently on display right now in the museum at the Tomb of the Unknown. We've loaned it off to them so they can commemorate their 100th anniversary, and that will be returned back to us, and that'll be on display for visitors to see. We mentioned videos. We'll have different types of videos that will be going on. I think I mentioned the code talkers. We'll have talking about Navajo code talkers and how the United States Army used Lakota and Dakota code talkers and Comanches and Apaches. We're going to talk a little bit about code talkers during the Second World War. We'll have some video of that. We'll have some music. We'll have, for example, you can push a button in the tank destroyer section and listen to the Tank Destroyer March, which was created for tank destroyer soldiers, and some of the different marches and different music in the early 1920s and 1930s for the creation. We've got one of the original Sousa marches that was written for several of the troops here with the First CAD Division. That will be on. You can be able to listen to that as well. Lots of stuff. It's more than I can think about. We have a lot of things that'll come up as new exhibits are put together.
Well, and we posted in the comments your Facebook page, and so people can go ahead and kind of keep up with what's going on in your department with the Facebook page. Is that right?
Yes, and not only the Facebook page, but eventually we will have a website as well. We have the CMH website that tells you where we're coming from, and then gives you contacts for our other web pages. But we currently have a Facebook page, and that page we have things going on every day. Different parts of the Fort Hood history story, third cav, first cav units of Fort Hood. We also are going to highlight particular artifacts, particular exhibits. So as new exhibit comes in, part of that construction process, we'll highlight that story so that you can see what things are going on. For example, we have this FT-17 World War I tank that'll become part of the main exhibit as you come into the rotunda. We'll be telling a little bit about some of those stories about that, how we got a hold of that, and what the significance is to modern warfare.
Well, that's neat. And you said that y'all are going to be having a soft opening, which seems like it's really soon. The months are going to go quickly. That soft opening, are we gonna have some of the exhibits up at that time, is the public invited to the soft opening?
Absolutely. So what our intent is with the soft opening is that we will have some temporary exhibits. Sorry about that, folks.
Did you not pay your light bill?
I must not have paid it. There he is. I must not have paid my light bill. I'm sorry about that. We have the the soft opening, we'll have temporary exhibits that we're going to put from the temporary exhibit gallery. We're going to have some big blow ups of what the new exhibits are going to look like. So you'll be able to actually take a look at what's going to be what's going to go in, and then we're going to have a bird's eye view. So as the exhibits are being built and installed, you'll be able to see them happen. Now, that's our intent. And then the Museum Foundation is going to create a gift shop, and then they'll have a gift shop there, so you'll be able to purchase materials on the new museum as well as on Fort Hood and Army history. You'll be able to go to get materials like that. And again, I really can't get in too much into the fundraising side because that's not my part of my thing. But I know they're the brick and paver program. They've got things going with that and their different activities. We're going to try to bring in guest speakers while we're waiting for the exhibits to get built, so we can have some things in the evening and some activities like that. So we will be open to the public roughly around June of next year until the grand opening. We may have to close for a couple of days so we can move things in, but we're going to try to keep that whole idea of the building of the museum visible so people can see how that transpires.
Are you excited?
Yeah, can't you tell? I know that
Yes.
it doesn't look like it because I'm kind of old and grumpy, but this is
No.
it's a dream come true for me. It's one of my big goals in life. I've been in the museum business over 40 years, and I've never been in a new building in my entire life. Every museum I've ever worked for has been an old building, and I'd like to get into that new building with that new building smell, and everything works. All the electricity works and the batteries and the heat works and the air conditioning works, and all those wonderful things that a new museum will provide. And let me just point on that as well, is that this new museum building, it will be world class. It'll be, not just exhibits, but the building itself. It is up to date, uh, build modern construction, modern physical plant. It'll have everything that you need. The grounds and stuff like that are going to be xeriscape, so it's going to be kind of self-sufficient. And the best part of that is that the Army gets a brand new building, and they don't have to deal with old buildings and things falling apart. This is a brand new facility, and so it'll be a savings, a long-term savings for Fort Hood and for the Army.
Well, in 2024, we're going to have a lot of people descend upon this area because of the eclipse. And so you guys are probably going to not even know how you're going to deal with all the tourists that are going to be in this area. So
I
we need
forgot
to
about that.
push it.
Yeah,
Yeah, you look, how you forget about this?
I know. Well, there's a lot, and again, there's a lot of stuff that we've got that we can plan for the future. We've got, one of the things that the Museum Foundation has been working on is bringing in reunions and things of that sort. So we'll have hopefully a lot of reunions coming in. We hope to help, with the first Cav and third Cavs reunions as they come up for the future. Different or the other units that are part of that story. I'm sure that we will have some kind of, well, I know we will have some kind of display for the eclipse, and create some ways for people to view that from the museum grounds. We'll work that stuff out. Yeah, I'm gonna have to start typing up some ideas for that as well. So, but we've got those kinds of things that we're looking forward to.
Yeah. Well, you'll definitely you up. I think you froze.
Oh, I'm here.
There you go. You're back. Well, that'll definitely be a tourist attraction, that people coming into the area will want to go and visit. So it sounds like, it's going to be a really fun thing to do in our area. And I know I'm personally excited about it.
Yeah, also too, is we have, in 24 and 25, we also have the 250th anniversary of the American Revolution. And so,
Oh, yeah.
you would say, well, what does that have to do with Fort Hood? No, it really doesn't do much, but there is a Texas connection to the American Revolutionary War. And we'll certainly, make an, uh, an opportunity to talk about the Texas connection to the revolution. And for those who don't know that, Spain, which controlled Texas at the time, was conducting military operations out of Texas into the Trans-Mississippi valleys, against British forces. Uh, General Galvez, who was the commander of Spanish forces, in North America, and in particular, Louisiana and Texas, used Texas to as a way to provide supplies for not only the Spanish troops that were fighting the British, but also provided supplies to the Continental Army all the way from Texas. Cattle drives coming across from Texas through Louisiana into across the Mississippi River up into Illinois to help provide uh, supplies for Continental forces. So we've got lots of stuff to talk about.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. I'm excited. And now, Lee, is there anybody with any questions at the moment?
No, ma'am.
No? Okay. Well, we are thrilled that you came and showed us the sneak peek of what's going on the other side of the highway there. We are, we're excited that there's a connection now. Guys, check out his the Facebook. Keep, watching when things are going to happen, when things are going to open. And I just think it'll be really cool to have electronic history lessons on, various parts of the military over there. So we thank you so much for taking time out of your busy day to come and talk to us again. This is the second time, and the last time it was just all in planning phase. This time you've got an actual building over there.
Yeah, yeah, we are, as I said, we are very excited with the new building and looking forward to supporting the community, telling our story, telling the Army history story. And I think we need some good news to come out of Fort Hood, and I think we have taken that in mind. That we are, some of the exhibits that we're going to talk about are going to deal with diversity and inclusion. And so we're hoping that that will provide some catalyst for discussion and for visiting.
Well, neat. Well, I'm excited. I didn't realize that it was going to be doing a soft opening so close. And so yay. And it'll definitely be in time for, the mass amount of people that plan on coming into the area in 2024. So that will definitely be the tourist attraction to go and visit and see. So we're
Well,
so
certainly
excited.
by the time that the eclipse happened, we'll be in full operations and with all our exhibits in and things of that sort. So we'll we
So
can really
everybody should get their tickets like as soon as it's soft open so that you can beat the crowds because it's going to be a happening
we,
place.
yeah, I think that I completely forgot about the eclipse, and so we're definitely going to have to put that into our planning guide, and create some things.
Yeah, yeah. Well, thank you so much again. And guys, if anybody has any questions, we also put the website with the contact information for Mr. Draper. If you have any specific questions, is it okay if they hit that email button on your website?
Absolutely.
All right. Well, everybody, thank you for joining us again. This Wednesday we have another. Yes, don't go anywhere yet in the dark. There we go. We have another communication meets community that is you come into the library and it's basically a who can convince who more of something that you believe in or a book you've read or music that you like, and we give prizes for that. Also, the following week we have our poetry slam. It'll be a combination of live and um, some pre-recorded poems. So if you would like to, go ahead and recite your poems, there's prizes for this. Definitely go ahead and email or come to the library. Look at our events page and go ahead and see how to register for that. So, all right. Well, that's enough of me talking, and we just want to tell everybody thank you. Thank you so much, Mr. Draper. And everybody make sure you go see the new museum when it opens. Because I know
So
I'm gonna be there.
let's plan for another visit in about 6 months from now, and we can give you an update and maybe we can do a walkthrough the galleries, so you can see what the inside of the building looks like.
That'd be awesome. That'd be so awesome. So, all right, y'all hear that, everybody? We got an invitation. It'll be virtual. Don't worry. We're not gonna all descend upon you. Just be us filming. So, all right. Well, thanks again, everybody, and you guys enjoy the beautiful weather and just do really well in your classes today. So we'll go ahead and let Lee take us out. Bye, everybody. Don't leave yet, Mr. Draper.